I want to thank Senior Special Supervisory Agent Szabo from the FBI, and acknowledge NYPD Commissioner Daughtry and the women and men of the NYPD who join us here today, District Attorney Weeks, who you will hear from shortly, and I just concluded a briefing with Mayor Adams and Commissioner Tisch from New York. I want to begin by thanking our fellow Pennsylvania resident who acted as a hero today. Pennsylvania resident saw something early this morning at McDonald's and said something to our local police. And our local police here in Altoona acted swiftly. I want to say a special thanks to Officer Tyler Fry of the Altoona Police Department. Officer Fry is about 6 months into his time serving his fellow people here in Pennsylvania, and he acted swiftly, he acted with smarts, and he acted with calm. You know, safety often turns on the strength of the relationship between the community and law enforcement. We have that strong relationship here in Altoona, and it was proven here today. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to demonstrate the same type of thoughtfulness and courage and smarts as the individual at McDonald's did this morning, and help law enforcement here in Pennsylvania as we continue with our investigation. You'll see photos of the suspect who is here, and you should know that this suspect traveled between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, making stops in between, obviously here in Altoona. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to help us with any tips that they might have by contacting us at 800-4-PA-TIPS. Again, that number is 800-4-PA-TIPS. The suspect was just arraigned here in the courthouse, and presumably New York will file charges very, very soon. That process will continue to play out, and justice will be delivered in this case. This case is hinged on attention. In fact, the attention in this case and the killing of Brian Thompson was helpful, no doubt, in allowing us to capture this killer, in alerting that individual at McDonald's this morning, and then having that individual contact police. But some attention in this case, especially online, has been deeply disturbing, as some have looked to celebrate instead of condemning this killer. Brian Thompson was a father to two. He was a husband, and he was a friend to many. And yes, he was the CEO of a health insurance company. In America, we do not kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences or express a viewpoint. I understand people have real frustration with our healthcare system, and I have worked to address that throughout my career. But I have no tolerance, nor should anyone, for one man using an illegal ghost gun to murder someone because he thinks his opinion matters most. In a civil society, we are all less safe when ideologues engage in vigilante justice. In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning. The real heroes every day in our society are the women and men who put on uniforms like these and go out in our communities to keep us safe. This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed. Mr. Thompson, I understand, was laid to rest earlier today in Minnesota in a private setting. As the conversation continues about this case, let's be mindful not to dehumanize him and make him just an avatar of a system that is disliked by many. He was a father, he was a husband, and he did not deserve to die like this on a sidewalk in New York City. I again want to thank all law enforcement who's present here this evening. Law enforcement works best when it works together. In this case, you have the New York Police Department working together with the Altoona Police Department, working together with our Pennsylvania State Police and our partners at the federal level as well. Everyone came together to solve this case and keep the public safe. I again want to ask my fellow Pennsylvanians, if you have any information regarding this suspect or his travels throughout Pennsylvania, please share those tips with us immediately. And with that, I want to thank District Attorney Weeks for his important work today and invite him to the microphone to say a few words.
Thank you, Governor Shapiro. Good evening, everyone. I would echo the governor's sentiments. Law enforcement does work at its best when they work together. I'd also like to thank District Attorney Seidel. He and his staff came down from Manhattan District Attorney's office today in record time to assist us at the Altoona Police Department. And as the governor stated, the state police, the Altoona Police Department, the FBI, the New York City Police Department, Logan Township Police Department, the Blair County Sheriff's Department, and other agencies all worked together today to do what needed to be done to seek justice. I often brag about how the community in Blair County isn't afraid to say something, to report a crime, to contact local law enforcement. And I've often touted how they've made their community, whether it be Altoona or somewhere else, a safer place to live. And today I submit that a resident from Altoona and the Altoona Police Department helped make New York City a safer place to live and helped to kickstart the process to seek justice for a senseless killing. So again, I'd like to thank everybody, and it's my honor to introduce Deputy Commissioner Daugherty at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DA. On behalf of the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, my boss, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, wants to extend once again their appreciation to the Altoona Police Department, to your leadership team, the federals, state, local authorities, and especially to the customer at the McDonald's that seen something, says something, to the McDonald's employee that called 911 and reported this individual inside of their restaurant. The men and women behind me, the detectives, some of these detectives that are standing behind me haven't been home since Tuesday when this incident happened. They've been working this case tirelessly around the clock. And when they got that phone call, immediately they jumped in their car, the police car, and raced down here to go see if this was the individual that we were looking for. That's dedication. Their commitment to bringing this individual to justice is just standing behind me. And on behalf of the mayor and the police commissioner, they extend their thanks and appreciation to you as well. Here's a message to the criminal element that think that they want to commit a crime in New York City and cross state lines, county lines. The message is very clear. Police Commissioner Tisch's police department will find you and bring you to justice. Just look behind me. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think with that, we'll be happy to try and take a few questions.
Question, I guess maybe for the local person about the arrest specifically today. I don't know who that would be. But, I guess I'm curious if we could hear a little bit more about the dynamics, if you could step to the podium, sir. We could hear a little bit more about the dynamics inside that McDonald's. I know there was some detail in the affidavit about what happened when the individual was asked if he'd been to New York. Could you speak a little bit to his demeanor and how that played out?
Sure. So it was a peaceful arrest, first and foremost. The officer quickly recognized the male as the suspect from the shooting. And within several seconds of the first contact, he had asked the suspect if he had been in New York City recently. And that really invoked a physical reaction from the suspect. He became visibly nervous, kind of shaking at that question. And he didn't really answer it directly. So that statement alone really said a lot. And the suspect didn't have to say a lot after that question to show that, he was very nervous at that point.
Would that the officer that the governor mentioned who's new on the job, who was involved in that?
Yes, so Officer Fry's here to my left. Officer Fry, you step this way a little bit. And then his partner that he was with, Officer Joe Detweiler.
Officer, could you maybe identify yourself and maybe describe that whole interaction and what played out? Spell your name.
Yeah, Patrolman Fry, Tylerfrye. So whenever we got on scene there, we were able to pretty much find where he was at in the restaurant. And as soon as he was wearing a blue medical mask. As soon as we pulled that down, or we asked him to pull it down, me and my partner and I recognized him immediately, just from what we saw in the media with photos, videos. We just didn't even think twice about it. We knew that was our guy, but he was very cooperative with us. Didn't really give us too many issues. Once we found out his identity, we took it from there.
How did it feel 6 months on the job as a law enforcement officer to be part of, to make this arrest?
I can't say I was expecting it by any means, but it feels good to get a guy like that off the street, especially starting my career this way. It feels great.
So upon his arrest, has he made any statements since his arrest? Has he asked for a lawyer yet?
To my knowledge, he hasn't made any statements.
How long was he staying in Altoona, and where was he staying? And then was the gun on himself, or was it in like a car somewhere?
We are still investigating how long he's been in Altoona. There's still a lot of follow-up to do in this case. Again, the men and women behind me are assisting with that. So we're still looking into it.
I'm going to ask Lieutenant Colonel Bivens of the Pennsylvania State Police to address the question you just raised.
Thank you. So there are a lot of things that need to be followed up yet in this investigation. Certainly, there were a number of items that were found on his person, in his backpack, that have been inventoried, and we've begun to do an analysis of some of those. There were written documents. There are electronic devices that are in the process of being downloaded. Search warrants are obtained. And so over the next hours and days, those efforts will continue. And we're going to take a closer look at all of the information that we can glean from that regarding his activities up until and during the time of the homicide, his flight from New York. And we know that he has been in Pennsylvania, excuse me, for several days. And so part of that investigation will also focus on trying to retrace his steps. We've already identified businesses, for example, that he frequented in this area and activities that he engaged in. That led us to more evidence. And so all of that is becoming kind of a mountain of evidence that has to be analyzed and looked at. I'm confident we'll have a much better idea of his activities over the past number of days in New York and in Pennsylvania. Additionally, we're also trying to determine that we don't have another actor or an accomplice out there. And so this information will all be used to help us prove or disprove whether that exists and whether there were any other intended targets. So a lot of questions that are out there that are unanswered yet, but we have a lot of information that we can examine that hopefully will give us some of those pieces of data that we need. You asked, or someone asked about the interview. He was initially cooperative. He is not now. And so he has been arraigned and transported and will be securely housed pending the filing of additional charges in New York.
Governor Shapiro, you mentioned that he was in Pittsburgh at some point. Is that correct? What
Yes.
do you know about that time in Pittsburgh?
We're not going to get into any more details at this time. We would like to hear from any Pennsylvanian or any Pittsburgher who had any sightings or any dealings with the individual. That's why I specifically asked for anyone with tips to share that with us.
Can you talk about the extradition to New York? How does that process work? I know that you have your case here, but what happens with the New York market?
And how long does it take?
Thank you.
So that answer depends. Once the charging documents are filed in the state of New York, we will file a fugitive justice complaint against the defendant. He'll be brought before a common pleas judge shortly thereafter, and the defendant will be presented with the option to waive his extradition or to contest his extradition. If he waives his extradition, we of course will make him available to the NYPD and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as soon as we're able to arrange his transportation there. If he contests it, that process typically takes between 30 and 45 days to do the requisite paperwork, but we do that all the time in our office, and that's kind of a normal procedure.
On the matter of the backpack itself right now, the backpack itself, you had the one that was in New York. Do we know if that's the same one that he had the time of the shooting there, or is this backpack that he had here one that he may have acquired? And the findings inside, the gun, the silencer, and cash, some foreign currency as well, is that correct?
I'll defer to someone else. I'm not going to speculate on any of the interpretation of the evidence. I'm going to rely on the officers doing the investigation to complete that and reach their conclusions.
Can we say that at this point he is a suspect in the hit on the United CEO? Can we call him a suspect at this point? Obviously, he was arrested on.
Yes, as we confirmed at his preliminary arraignment, with the permission of District Attorney Seidel, we expect charges to be filed forthwith, and obviously that I'm not going to speculate on that timing, but tonight or tomorrow or sometime in the very near future for homicide.
Any insight into a motive? Sorry, sir, can I just ask? In terms of the officer's investigation of this case, can you say any more about a suspected possible motive?
So at this point, we're not going to comment on that. I mentioned that there is a lot of information to go through. Certainly everything has been or will be shared with NYPD, but there is other information that really doesn't even pertain to that investigation. It, again, focuses more on his activities here in Pennsylvania and other travels. So all of that, hopefully, will shine more light on it. There is some information that gives us some insight into his thinking, but again, all part of the ongoing investigation, and way too early to discuss that.
Commissioner, as far as the NYPD, we're not going to be commenting on the investigation steps here. In the next couple of days, there'll be immediate availability at One Police Plaza, and Commissioner Tisch will update. Commissioner Tisch and the Chief of Detectives, Joe Kinney, will update the media at One Police Plaza. But I will be happy to talk about that. The Commissioner Tisch and the New York City Mayor did FaceTime Officer Fry and then thanked him for their service. So that was he got a pretty cool phone call from the mayor and our police commissioner.
Do we know how he got to Pennsylvania? Was it through aircraft, train, bus? How did he arrive in Pennsylvania?
Again, we do have a good idea of that, but all part of the ongoing investigation.
But just to clarify, Governor, you had suggested, I think I heard you, I want to make sure I heard it right, that he took a bus from the terminal at the George Washington Bridge to Philly, and then from there he was around the state, around up here, or is that can you be any more specific about how you think this works?
Well, again, I'll jump in as it's all part of the ongoing investigation. And so, yes, we do have a good idea how he got from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, but there are some gaps in time. And so before we start laying out a timeline of his travel, we really need to work through all of that. And so we know that at some point it is likely he was in a variety of locations across the state, to include Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and points in between.
And then Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and then he made his way back here.
Again, that'll all be part of the, logically, he's caught here in Altoona, so logically he was in those locations first. But again, the timeline of all of that will be part of the ongoing investigation.
What was happening action for several days? Obviously, he was caught at McDonald's this morning. Guy's got to eat. For the past few days, he's been on the run.
All right, press conference, Altoona, Pennsylvania, in the arrest of Luigi Mangiani. Which they have not said this formally, but it certainly appears as though the FBI, New York police, and the police in Altoona believe he is the assassin who killed the United Healthcare CEO last week. Tim Gallagher is with us, former FBI special agent in charge of the Washington and Newark field offices. He has not been charged in the murder of Brian Thompson. Forgery, firearms not to be carried without a license, tampering with records, possessing instruments of a crime, false identification of law enforcement employees. Tim, what struck me, when obviously we'll keep an eye on the press conference as well, is what they didn't say, which is, hey, we're still looking for somebody.
Absolutely. That was the first thing they pretty much came out with. Like they said they have their man, but they are going to dig through every piece of evidence they have. The subject himself supposedly said that in his manifesto that I acted alone and I funded myself. Well, they're not going to take his word for it, right? They're going to drill down and see who he's been talking to, what chat groups he's been with online, and see if there's a danger to anyone else out there.
All right, so they found him in a McDonald's, $8,000 in U.S. currency, $2,000 in foreign currency, a passport, bags to block cellular data, a ghost gun, meaning parts of it were printed with a 3D printer. All of that says that this is somebody who planned this for an awfully long time, but then was only a couple of 100 miles away from the crime scene when he was caught a week later. Does that mean he was planning more stuff?
Sure, exactly. What you just laid out there. There was meticulous planning. We saw it in the murder itself, the exit from the city. But what we're seeing right now, he kept the gun on him, right? And he kept the manifesto on him. And that may indicate that he had other targets in mind.
All right, Alex Capriello, they're in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We heard from the police officer who captured Luigi Mangiani. He'd been on the job for 6 months. Alex, give us a sense of the town. Any idea why he was there in this little town between Harrisburg and Pittsburgh?
No, I think this was just a man that was on the lam. Basically, what we just heard at the very tail end of that press conference is that he didn't just beeline straight here to Altoona, but he had several stops along Pennsylvania along the way, most notably Philadelphia. Earlier today, looking at those Greyhound schedules from that Washington Heights bus terminal, we saw that there were direct lines from Greyhound that go either to Boston, to Philly, to D.C. So it appears as if this is the man that NYPD believes that he is, that this is someone who took a bus to Philadelphia and then slowly made their way west. We were on I-99 for about 4.5 hours to get here, so no easy or quick shot, but keep in mind it's been 5 days since that Midtown Manhattan murder. Again, it seems right now we were here for this arraignment for the Pennsylvania crimes, but I'm hearing from our sources that the arrest warrant is being filed by the NYPD and New York authorities either later tonight or at the earliest tomorrow morning.
All right. Alex, thank you very much. And there you see the picture of allegedly, Luigi Mangiani in the back of a New York cab, now in handcuffs, potentially for extradition to New York on these charges. The fact that he's not farther away and he had a passport certainly would lead you to believe that there were other targets, which speaks even more to our next segment. There are two cases in New York with completely different reactions across the country. Bill O'Reilly on this case, the Daniel Penny case, and the clear double standard when we come back.
NewsNation tonight. The battle lines are drawn as Pete Hegseth fights to remain President Trump's pick to lead the Pentagon. Will the nomination survive the Senate? Hegseth's attorney joins Dan Abrams live tonight, only on NewsNation.
Did I read this? Did I get eggs? Where are my keys?
Don't wait while memory and thinking issues pile up. These issues may seem like normal aging, but could be due to a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. Amyloid can build up over time. The sooner you talk to your doctor, the more options you may have. Visit amyloid.com for additional information.
The itch and rash of moderate to severe eczema disrupts my skin night and day. Despite treatment, it's still not under control. But now I have Rinvoq. Rinvoq is a once-daily pill that reduces the itch and helps clear the rash of eczema fast. Some taking Rinvoq felt significant itch relief as early as 2 days, and some achieved dramatic skin clearance as early as 2 weeks. Many saw clear or almost clear skin.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions. GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events. Infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Disrupt the itch and rash of eczema. Talk to your dermatologist about Rinvoq.
Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors. Easy to apply for the whole family. Vicks VapoStick. And try new Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors.
The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor tracks your glucose in real time. And over time, it can help lower your A1C. This is progress. Learn more and try for free at freestylelibre.us.
It's the most wonderful time.
With Verizon, trade in any phone, any condition. For a limited time, get iPhone 16 Pro on us. And iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. All three on us. Only on Verizon.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. After working 25 years in the automotive industry, I retired. 8 years ago, I just didn't feel like I was on my game. I started taking Prevagen, and I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me. I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years now, and it's still helping me tremendously.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Even with my mom's Alzheimer's, we've still been close. But when she developed agitation that may happen with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease, a distance came between us. She'd get upset when I'd try to help, began wandering, even started swearing. She got agitated often, so we talked to her doctor.
Rexulti is the only FDA-approved medication proven to reduce agitation symptoms that may happen with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. Elderly people with dementia-related psychosis have increased risk of death or stroke. Report fever, stiff muscles, and confusion, which can be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar can lead to coma or death, weight gain, increased cholesterol, unusual urges, dizziness on standing, falls, seizures, trouble swallowing, or sleepiness may occur.
Rexulti helped reduce my mom's symptoms.
Take action for your loved one. Talk to their doctor today about Rexulti.
There's a bit of irony here with the United Healthcare case and Daniel Penny's case. There is a large group of people praising the United Healthcare alleged assassin. Now, we heard from Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. He said he is not a hero. Many, many people on the left believe him to be a hero. People are not talking about turning down the temperature when it comes to the United Healthcare case. The assassin is a folk hero. Daniel Penny, on the other hand, the man who saved an entire subway car, well, he was acquitted today, found not guilty by a jury in New York. No one's talking about turning down the temperature in New York after the verdict. Activists in New York called for riots.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Meanwhile, people on social media are praising the alleged assassin and saying he should target, or he should have targeted, or other people should target another United Healthcare executive.
Our role is a critical role, and we make sure that care is safe, appropriate, and is delivered when people need it. And we guard against the pressures that exist for unsafe care or for unnecessary care to be delivered in a way which makes the whole system too complex and ultimately unsustainable.
Some of the comments on that video read, "Dudes next. I'm glad that killer's still on the loose and you just made the list." So to review, the left is up in arms that Daniel Penny, who risked his life to save and protect people on a subway, they're so angry that he is free. In fact, it's evidently now okay to call for riots in the streets. At the same time, the man accused of killing a healthcare CEO is praised for, quote, starting a conversation about healthcare. Bill O'Reilly is with us, host of the No Spin News. Talk about irony.
You know, I'm not seeing it, Leland. I mean, the guy that you used on the clip, the racial clip, he had like 4 people behind him. This guy makes a living doing that. We haven't heard from Al Sharpton, who is the true provocateur of race disenchantment in New York City. I don't expect Sharpton will say anything. He's too busy counting his $500,000 slipped to him by Kamala Harris. That takes a lot of time to count that much money. So I don't really see any mass movement to impose racial politics on the Penny case. As far as the United Health case, we have a strain of people in this country, Antifa people, who believe violence is absolutely acceptable to advance their cause. They've always been there. They're there on the right, the Nazis, the Klan. But they're, again, minor players. 10 years ago, you never would have heard any of this United Healthcare stuff because the internet amplifies it. But in what they call polite society, it really doesn't have any effect at all.
Well, there's something a little bit more than this, right? Because it's not just, Hawk Newsom on the left talking about Daniel Penny. He may be the one calling for riots, but there's a lot of other people who are talking and have talked about how Daniel Penny needs to be locked up. Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of all people, and his statement far from saying, hey, look, somehow we got it wrong. Talented career prosecutors and their family members were besieged with hate threats. This is unacceptable, and everyone, no matter your opinion on this case, should condemn it. You think about how much he spent going after Donald Trump, now shut down by the jury in this case, and he's evidently mad. Evidently, I don't think he's going to condemn what Hawk Newsom said. But you said something different about the Antifa folks on the United Healthcare side. There's something different going on here, because it's not just the loons, okay? Saturday Night Live, of all people, joked about this over the weekend. Take a listen.
This week, New York City officials sent a tough message on crime. If you shoot somebody in the middle of the street, you better get on your bike, hop on a bus, and get the heck out of here, mister. It's also so crazy that the shooting happened 3 blocks from here in broad daylight, and the guy just bicycled away. Probably because they have every cop in the city guarding our Christmas tree.
If it had been someone other than the CEO of a healthcare company, would those jokes have worked?
I don't know. He's mocking New York City. He's not mocking the death of the CEO, and he should mock New York City. New York City is totally out of control. There's no public safety anymore in the city. That's been destroyed by Alvin Bragg and others in Albany. People are fearful. That's why Daniel Penny's case got so much attention, because anybody riding the subway to work or home or whatever is not relaxed. Right. I mean, because there are so many mentally ill people, violent mentally ill people, walking around the streets, and the New York City system of justice will not stop them at all. Will just release them time after time. The man who was killed by Daniel Penny had 47 arrests and assaulted and a conviction of assaulting an 80-year-old woman. And he's running around with no supervision, nobody helping him, including his family, who's now suing Daniel Penny. Why don't you sue the city of New York? All right? So it's the social disorder component that is the most important part of this story. It has collapsed in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and it isn't coming back as long as progressive left politicians are in power, because they don't want to protect the public. Their view of life, of justice, of crime and punishment is so skewed, so screwed up. I was going to use another word, but I very rarely say the word anymore, rehab myself, that it is a danger to all of us in New York City, all of us. And yet, the voters keep putting them back into office.
Well, the voters didn't.
Shame on
the voters
you.
may put him back, but the jury did not. You think Daniel Penny gets acquitted 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I do. There was so much reasonable doubt in the case that you would have to be O.J. Simpson juror to overlook the reasonable doubt. O.J. Simpson was guilty. The jury knew he was guilty. I covered the case. They knew it, but they didn't want to convict the black man. It was all based on race. And once you get into that, there's a component of race in the Daniel Penny thing, but it hasn't caught on, and that is a relief. It has not caught on.
Well, people tried to make it
fair-minded
catch on.
people know. They tried, but the minority community in New York did not respond to that.
All right,
because
fair enough.
they're in danger too.
Right.
They're in danger too. They know. They see.
All right. Bill, thank you for the gut check, as always. We'll see you next week before the holidays. I'm getting you on record with a few more predictions like we did last year. You were pretty good. Spot on. Called the Barack Obama. You called the Joe Biden would not be on the presidential ticket. We'll see what your predictions are for next year. Thank you, my friend.
And I want everybody to check out Confronting the President's great Christmas gift. Number 6 on the New York Times list this week after 14 weeks in the marketplace. Thank you all.
And with good reason.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Leland bought about 8 copies for everybody he knows. I think so. That's what I'm hearing.
People are saying, Bill, the downfall of Syria's President Assad has been a huge humiliation for Russia and Iran, but it could lead, well, to ISIS, Al-Qaeda. Maybe Assad leaving wasn't a good thing. Ambassador John Bolton with us next.
As part of your job description, and you made a promise to keep the line running, to power through the downpour, to be the one who always gets it done. And our promise is to help you do it with professional-grade supplies for every industry, plus same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. Because you can't predict the future, but with the right partner, you can be prepared for it. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, in Syria tonight, the question remains who is in charge. Fair to say that whoever it is probably isn't that great for the United States. The country's monster of a ruler, Bashar al-Assad, had to flee. We do not know where he is. The Russian news agency TASS says he is in Moscow. Others are not so certain. We know Putin offered asylum, but nothing beyond that. We know very little about the group, the HTS group. It's the rebel group that overthrew Assad. Their origins were with Al-Qaeda. So that tells you a lot. Sort of ISIS wannabes. And they vowed their next stop after taking over Damascus is Jerusalem.
أرض الإسلام هنا دمشق هنا فسطاط المسلمين من هنا يا قدس من هنا قادمون يا قدس صبرا يا أهل غزة صبرا صبرا تكبير الله.
That's comforting. Despite this and what you just heard, there's some wild notion among Washington elite that the rebels are some type of freedom fighters interested in democracy. From the Washington Post. Amid Syria's upheaval, a wariness over the rebels' Islamic roots. Western governments long worried about a catastrophic success in Syria if Islamic fighters gain control. But experts say the rebels have changed. I learned in the Middle East, spent 4 years there. Not an expert, but a lot of time on the ground. There is no such thing as moderate terrorists. The Pentagon agrees. They've bombed over 75 ISIS targets in Syria in the past 48 hours. They've used B-52 bombers, F-15s, A-10 attack jets. With us now, Ambassador John Bolton, former assistant to the president for national security affairs. Mr. Ambassador, who in their right mind would think that somehow these are moderate rebels?
Well, I don't know where that description comes from. All we have to observe is their history, which is not encouraging. There were not real Syrian opposition forces, or at least not very many, associated with this victory. We don't really know enough to know for sure, but there's no doubt who's in control in Damascus now. And I think it's very worrying for what they're going to do inside Syria. I think Turkey's role is still not fully explained, but I think clearly present in helping the the rebels push toward Damascus. The Turks' actions against the Kurds, I think we can see that coming. I think, look, it's unquestionably a good thing that Assad is going. It's another significant weakening of Iran in the region. That's always to the good. But it may be that one authoritarian regime has been replaced by a terrorist regime that still has objectives that could harm Israel, Jordan, and other American allies like the Kurds.
Well, and also harm the United States. We know that when al-Qaeda or ISIS or Shia or Sunni terrorists are given a safe haven in a country with a whole lot of weapons, it is not a good thing for the world. You say it's unquestionably good that Assad is gone. I agree with you. It's unquestionably that Iran is weakened. That doesn't necessarily make the world a safer place, though, vis-a-vis what Syria could become, right?
Well, I agree completely, and I was trying to make the point that this group of terrorists can cause a lot of harm. But the fact is now this is the third pillar of Iranian strength in the region. First, Hamas, which Israel is pretty much dismembered, Hezbollah, which they were way on the way to doing, and now Assad in Syria. You've still got the Houthis, you've still got the Shia militia in Iraq. But Israel's military has had sufficiently weakened Iran that the Syrian rebels in Turkey saw an opportunity. They took it. They knocked out the only other state actor that's unquestionably loyal to Iran in the region. Iraq is a little more complicated. So each time you knock away another pillar, Iran is weakened. And you have to ask at some point, will the Iranian people get the message? Now is the time to go into the streets. Supreme Leader's 85. He's not in good health. I think the regime is weak, but we need to see some popular opposition.
Well, not to speak for the Iranian opposition, but it would be suicide, right, to go in the last 6 weeks of the Biden administration. You wait until Donald Trump comes in for a chance. A lot to unpack here. Most importantly, what Jake Sullivan was saying about the United States, 75 bombing missions over the past 48 hours. Here he is on Good Morning America.
The United States is taking 75 airstrikes against ISIS targets yesterday inside Syria. What is the top U.S. priority right now?
Well, number one priority, obviously, is to protect the United States of America from the resurgence of a terror threat emanating from Syria. And that means holding ISIS down. Don't let them take advantage of this.
Seems like he's setting up another one of these endless wars that Donald Trump keeps talking about.
Well, actually, here the Biden administration is doing the right thing. Trump is wrong to say we don't have any interest in Syria, we should stay out. The risk here is that the terrorists will link up with ISIS and will get the arsenals, the weapons, the supplies that those bombing raids were intended to destroy. Also threaten the American troops that are in Syria and should stay there. This is not because we're taking a side, Assad versus anti-Assad, but looking out for stability in the region and for our people. And let's not forget, Israel went in as well, apparently to go after Syria's chemical and biological weapons stockpile, something we also have a real interest in.
And also evidently destroyed their entire air force and destroyed Syrian air defenses that were manned by the Iranians. The last part of this, right, is what Russia does. This, some have said, is Russia's Saigon moment. Dare I say this is Russia's Afghanistan moment, not the one in the 1980s, but the one that we had a couple of years ago. Does Vladimir Putin double down and get more aggressive in Ukraine because he's embarrassed, or does this open up the possibility of negotiations in Ukraine?
No, I think he's under more pressure now to show something that more closely approximates victory. If Russia gets kicked out of the naval station at Tartus and the air base in Latakia province, that's a major setback, and that's at least a possibility now. So I think in Ukraine, Putin has to show the Russian people that he's got a success. He's not at that point where he can say it with a straight face. Maybe he can, but I just think it's going to make his negotiating position harder.
It's a dangerous world, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.
A lot more, warnotes.com on our view of Syria. Warnotes.com to subscribe for free. Donald Trump has given an interview to NBC News. The media is shocked by this. why there should be no shock about what Donald Trump said when we come back.
010 today.
It's very difficult in Washington, D.C. to find an honest politician. But Donald Trump might be one of that very rare breed. The man is actually promising to follow through on his campaign promises. Normally, politicians win and then they run to the center. Case in point, he says he actually is going to go after the January 6th committee.
Cheney was behind it, and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
Walked right up to the line. But it's exactly what he said at the rallies. And just as unpredictable as it is for a politician to follow through on campaign promises, the media's response to this Trump interview is entirely predictable. Cue the meltdown.
There's only been one Justice Department that's gone after somebody, and it's this current one after him.
But he did try to overthrow an election. He did hide classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, wouldn't give them back.
Joe Biden had classified documents in his house. But
Lance, not to borrow a line from ESPN, but come on, man. Seriously.
If you're experienced,
this is nuts. We should just say this is this is nuts.
Jasmine Wright, Notice Politics reporter, Reagan Reese, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. Ladies, good to see you. Reagan, whether or not you're going to tell the FBI to investigate the January 6th committee seems pretty clear he's not going to. But the fact that the rest of the media falls into the trap that Donald Trump lays every time, I can't figure out.
Yeah, going back to what you said, this was an incredibly predictable interview, and that's why we're seeing these meltdowns, especially let's point out to that one from Mediaite, where they're calling him out for misstating that Kristen Welker interviewed President Joe Biden. They're completely missing the point that Trump is making, that the media is biased against him, and that he has continuously had to fight this battle with them, and they have been softer on Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden.
I guess, Jasmine, this is my question. Just we're not media critics, journalists make lousy media critics, but from a political standpoint, people who do not like Donald Trump, of which there are many in the media, I think we can reasonably agree on that. Is there ever been a time when criticizing Donald Trump in this way doesn't make him stronger?
Well, I guess if you look at the past, the answer to that is perhaps not, right? I think that every time, particularly the way that he's kind of positioned himself and his supporters, that when he does face backlashes for things that he talked about in his rallies, his supporters become more really kind of circling the wagons around him and trying to be more loving of him and more supportive of his agenda. So, I guess you could answer no, but I think that there's like a difference between the media being too overly critical of him versus the media stating facts. And I think that there is a bit of both happening.
Okay, so Reagan, this is what I understand. We'll play him talking about pardoning folks on the first day, January 6th rioters. Take a listen.
I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day?
Yeah, I'm looking first day.
Issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
By the way, they've been in there for years, and they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
How much of this is the old world wrestling, that everything was staged, and that Donald Trump knows what he's going to get when he goes on NBC for Meet the Press? Meet the Press knows what's going to happen. He knows that he's going to be confronted with these things. He knows how it's going to be covered, and he knows that it's going to rile up his supporters. How much of this is actually highly predictable and planned?
Totally. That is why they keep going back to NBC. That's why we hold Republican primary debates with NBC News because they hate Republicans, and it fires up the base. I have to laugh at this clip because she acts in disbelief that Trump says he's going to pardon all these people on the first day of office.
He had their choir sing at the rally.
I know. And meanwhile, the president of the United States was acting like he wasn't going to pardon his son and then turned around and absolutely did.
Well, there you go. There's performance in politics. As was this, a fragrance your enemies can't resist. Donald Trump's new Fight, Fight, Fight fragrance is available. And the new advertisements are coming. We have the picture. This is the picture of Jill Biden and Donald Trump together at the opening of Notre Dame. Reagan, I don't know if you covered the first Trump transition, but it seems like he's having a lot more fun in the second one.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's like you only live once.
Yeah,
you took the words out of my mouth.
I'm cool like that, right? I'm down with the lingo of the kids.
I'm Gen Z, so yeah, you totally are. But I would say that it looks like Jill Biden is having some fun too. This is the guy that they call the threat to democracy, and they're sharing smiles.
Your Democratic sources, they're seeing this. Are they upset by this?
I actually saw a lot of people on Twitter laughing about it, Democrats. I think, yes, he is kind of pushing what the norms are, but I think that is something that the president-elect
something Donald Trump has done
yes, continuously
1980?
No,
but are they mad? Are the Democrats mad at how Joe Biden, especially Joe Biden, are treating Donald Trump?
I think that there are questions from the people who I speak to that if you believe that Donald Trump is the enemy to democracy, that you believe that he's a real threat to democracy, then how can you be so jovial once the election is over? And I think it is when we're talking about Democrats questioning how they move forward, I think that that is a question that they have. How can we use such language, but then kind of shake his hand and smile and do all this?
We asked these questions before the election. Boy, it's only Monday. Lots of news. Big show tomorrow. Here's Chris.
Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. The man who murdered the CEO has been caught. But there is a lingering threat that we need to wake up to. Now, on paper, the story here is that this 26-year-old murderer looks like the ideal. Valedictorian, Ivy League, friendly, ambitious, curious, even known to be kind. Many are wondering what his mental